Hello and welcome. If you have ADHD, there's a good chance that you've experienced some version of this. You have something important to do. Maybe it's responding to an email, making a phone call, scheduling an appointment, or cleaning up a room. You know it needs to get done. You want to get it done, and yet you can't seem to get it started. Hours pass, maybe days passed, and the task sits there in the back of your mind, taking up space and creating stress. And eventually, you begin wondering, what is wrong with me? Why can everyone else seem to do these simple things when I feel completely stuck? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not lazy. One of the most misunderstood symptoms of ADHD is difficulty with task initiation. Many people assume procrastination means that someone just doesn't care. They're not motivated enough, or they lack discipline. But for many people with ADHD, the problem isn't knowing what to do. The problem is getting started. The ADHD brain often struggles with activation. So think of it like trying to start a car that just doesn't always turn over when you start the key. The engine isn't broken. The car isn't bad. The process of getting it moving sometimes just requires more effort. So when a task feels boring, overwhelming, uncertain, or doesn't provide an immediate reward, the ADHD brain can have difficulty generating the activation energy needed to get started. And unfortunately, most of us don't know this. So instead of understanding, what happens is that we criticize ourselves or other people criticize us. We tell ourselves that we're lazy, irresponsible, that we're just not doing enough, unmotivated. Over time, these messages can become deeply ingrained. Many adults with ADHD aren't just carrying unfinished tasks. They're carrying years of shame. If that's true for you, I'd like to ask you to pause for a moment and consider something. What if the problem isn't that you're lazy? What if you've been trying to solve an activation problem using self-criticism? And what if self-criticism isn't actually helping? In fact, for many people, shame makes it harder to begin because now the task isn't just a task. It's evidence that you're failing. It's proof that you're behind. It's another opportunity to disappoint yourself or someone else. No wonder your nervous system wants to avoid it. So let's talk about one practical skill that you can begin using today. It's the 2-minute lunge. The basic idea is pretty simple. Instead of focusing on finishing the task, focus on beginning it for 2 minutes. That's it. Not completing it, not doing it well, not making meaningful progress or doing it perfectly. Just getting started. If you need to send an email, the goal is simply to open your inbox. If you need to exercise, your goal is to put your shoes on. If you need to write a report, your goal is to open the document. And if you need to clean the kitchen, the goal is to simply wash one dish. So why does this simple thing help? Because the hardest part of activation is getting going. Once your brain is moving, continuing becomes so much easier. But even if you stop after those 2 minutes, you've still succeeded because the goal was never completion. The goal was creating momentum. So this approach might sound almost too simple, but simple and easy are not the same thing. What you're doing is working with your brain instead of fighting against it. You're lowering the barrier to entry. You're making the task feel safer and more manageable, less overwhelming. And perhaps most importantly, you're giving yourself an opportunity to succeed. So before we finish, I'd like to leave you with this thought. The next time you find yourself stuck, notice that story that you're telling yourself. If the story is, I'm lazy, or I should be able to do this, why am I like this? See if you can gently replace it with something more accurate. Something like, I'm having difficulty getting started right now. My brain could really use support and not criticism. Starting is hard, and I can take one small step. Because ADHD is not a character flaw, and the goal isn't to force yourself to function like someone else. The goal is to understand your brain well enough to support it. So thank you so much for taking the time to spend this time with me today. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from the practice, it's this. You're not lazy. You may be struggling with activation, And that is something that we can learn to work with, one small step at a time. Take care.